Shading on curved surfaces can be a difficult thing to do. Shading on curved surfaces can be a very difficult thing to do, let alone smooth shading or any shading in general can also be a very difficult thing to do. I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks, kind of the logic, thought process, and approach that I take to apply shading on curvature surfaces. So right here I have this pumpkin here. I'm going to go ahead and shade this rose in here, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk about things as I do this. So where I'm going to begin is I'm going to begin by kind of doing a very faint outline, and then I'll start shading in. So like I'm going to start right here, for example, and you're going to notice that I'm on the curve, but I'm going to prioritize my posture, my positioning as I am creating here. I'm also running at 4 volts even, using a CNC 5-round liner. I'm also using Intense Formula 23 tattooing ink with the StayLit tattoo machine. So you're going to see that I'm always going to prioritize my posture, meaning I want my hand planted comfortably, and I also want to notice or pay attention to the direction I'm going to be shading into. Like so. Go ahead and wipe away, and let's see what we are working with here. So that right there is going to be my first layer of shading that I applied. I'm going to kind of just go ahead and build this up as best I can here. So you kind of see I'm just kind of like scratching in these areas here. So one thing that you're going to notice that I do a lot here while shading is I prioritize my posture in the direction that I'm going to be shading in. So I need to shade this little area right here. I'm going to make sure that I'm comfortable before I commit to the area of shading, so that way I could apply each individual pixel as cleanly as I possibly can. Shading on a curvature surface is completely different from shading on different surfaces. We have to really prioritize our posture, our position, and our comfortability in order to be able to kind of swing the needle the way that we need to, in order to use just the very tip as well. So if we're not prioritizing that posture or comfort, then there's no guarantee that we're going to get smooth results. So I'm going to move on over to this side, for example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition myself. I'm going to turn the pumpkin around. I'm going to begin by kind of starting here. And then I'm going to begin by applying the rest of these lines here. Forgive me for that. Pause there. So you're going to see I'm constantly adjusting myself to accommodate for the flow that I need. The way that the pumpkin accepts the ink is going to be different from the way that fake skin or even human skin accepts ink. This one's going to be a lot more prominent. We're probably not going to get as many, different tones simply because of the texture that we are tattooing on. However, I'm just going to kind of stick with the process. I'm just going to see the outcome and what type of results I get. I do still feel like this is going to be a great learning lesson. I want to saturate this area in more darker. There we go. And then I'm going to repeat that, kind of do the same thing down here. So you're going to notice my hand, so I'm always gripping. So this will be like my stretching hand, and this is going to be obviously my tattooing hand. You're going to notice that I'm always prioritizing my comfort and my positioning when I am shading on this curvature surface. And that's the only way that I feel comfortable proceeding. I have to prioritize that posture and that positioning in order to apply this as cleanly as I can. Same thing right here. Nothing changes, just where I'm placing the shading. So you can see my left hand is prioritizing my stability, while my right hand is performing the function of applying the shading. You're going to see that I'm cross-hatching, moving in different directions, but each time I do that, I'm still prioritizing my posture, my position. You can see that the pumpkin itself is starting to discharge a little bit right there, just as skin would. This can be all around good practice, especially if you're not used to working on curvature surface. This can be a great way to develop that sort of rapport. Each time I have a new section to tattoo, I'm greeted with a new challenge that I have to kind of overcome and or problem solve. So for example, right here, I have to create a little gap right here so that way it doesn't look too flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. I'm going to create a little barrier so that way I have negative skin showing up through between here and the end right there. And then I'm going to begin whip shading like so. Same thing right here. Slow and steady. As you can see, I'm trying to be real precise with my deposits here. Each and every step of the way, it's going to be the same thing, much like lining. However, just the technique changes. So you're going to notice my left hand is holding my stability. My right hand is allowing me to get comfortable enough to apply the tattoo cleanly. And then I'm going to commit. There we go. And the same thing over here. So I'm kind of just like ghost lining these areas right here. Now I'm doing this that way I could establish these boundaries and then I know where to shade. But you're going to see though that this entire video is going to consist of this workflow. However, just with like minor variations, I'm going to have to turn the pumpkin some different directions for some of these shades. You get the idea. So that's what's really going to vary. There we go. Same thing. I'm going to go this way. One thing that I'm noticing too about the pumpkin is that tonal value is not really a thing. It's kind of like once you deposit the ink, it goes straight to its final tone. So you really have to kind of be mindful and pay attention. But that's pretty much like the challenge of shading. Even on human skin or fake skin, we're still going to want to be mindful of our tones. It's actually really good practice. If you're not familiar with shading or let alone comfortable with shading, then this is a good way to approach it, to develop more. Still going to notice that my left hand is still providing the stability, while my right is providing the technique. Nothing's changed. You can see my left hand is still holding the posture and comfortability. The right hand is still doing the technique. If you're not comfortable tattooing on curvature surface, this can be a great way to go about building up that comfortability. It's a little bit more complicated than what I thought it'd be. However, it's not something that I can't do. It just requires patience and technique, a little bit of thinking as well. One thing that I'm noticing about shading a pumpkin here is that, again, there's no tones or anything, so it makes it really challenging. We're either gonna go too dark too quickly, or we're gonna get close to of a shade that we want. There is no medium, so we're gonna get one or the other, from my experience. Which is really gonna force us to focus on our technique and technical application. Now, I understand that the skin isn't going to accept shading the way human skin or fake skin accepts it, so I'm just going to deal with these results and I'm going to finish it. Even though the shades aren't the way that I'd like, it's like really kind of like textured and blotchy, I'm not really able to get a smoother shade here. That's okay. I am also using a variation of a gray wash, however, it's still coming up really, really dark. So there are multiple variables that I am considering upon applying this. I'm just about done here shading. I'm just gonna add a few more layers in certain areas, and we can call it a session here for this shading. Now it is definitely a challenge. It's not necessarily easy to get like a smooth shade either, and that's what makes it more challenging. However, I'm sure with enough technique and trial and error, I'll be able to figure out how to smooth it out over time, which is what I feel development is exactly that. It's just kind of problem solving over time, figuring out ways to better our craft. So here we are at a different view. So here is this rose just about completed. Now, in my opinion, this isn't the look that I was going for. I just didn't know how the pumpkin skin was going to accept the ink. I was going for a sort of smoother stipple as I typically accomplish, but for this skin, I wasn't able to do that. I'm not sure if I have to kind of fluctuate on my technique and work it out a little bit to get smoother shades. However, when I deposited these pixels, they kind of went to the darkest level of saturation without layering. So there was really not an option to layer up my layers to get the shading that I want. However, it really didn't stop me from finishing this. I still finished it either way. I'm not happy with the way that it looks. I don't like this sort of like dark textured read as well. It's not that it looks bad, it's just that I prefer for my pixels to be a little bit more smoother looking. So it's just a personal preference thing. That right there is how I would go about shading on a pumpkin or curvature surface. That'll be it for this one. If you're wanting to tattoo a pumpkin, I would recommend trying to do so. If you're gonna try shading, let me know if you're able to get smoother shades on your end. That'll be it for this one though. If you have any questions, drop them down below. Before you go, please don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell for me, as I will be bringing more videos like this. I appreciate you, your time, and your support. Have a great day. Are you wanting to develop your tattooing skill sets? Now you can practice and develop anytime, any place with an assortment of tattooing workbooks that I've created. With these assorted tattooing workbooks, we can practice our basic lining all the way to advanced lining. We can practice shading, shading placement, dot work, textures, and more. All we are gonna need is a tattoo workbook of mine. We can use a pencil, pen. We can even use a tattoo machine with a ballpoint cartridge to develop our tattooing abilities further. That means that we don't need tattoo ink, we don't need napkins or petroleum jelly to get to practicing. Simply open one of my tattooing workbooks and get going. It really is that easy. You can get your hands on one of my developmental tattooing assorted workbooks by simply clicking the links in my description or in the pinned comment section below, or navigating on over to Amazon.com, typing in Daniel Yuck, and you'll see all of the assorted tattoo workbooks that I've created come up. If you have an Amazon account, be sure to follow my Amazon author page as well, as I would greatly appreciate your support. Should you have any questions at all, drop them in the comment section down below. I will do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. With that being said, let's get right back into this video.